There's a part of the internet most people know about, but never really see. A place hidden under layers of strange links, fake names, and pages that look like they were built decades ago and never touched again. Most people who talk about the dark web only know the stories. Hitmen for hire. Red rooms. Missing people. Forums full of sick people hiding behind usernames and encryption. A lot of it is probably fake. But not all of it. And sometimes, the worst thing you can find down there isn't even human. These are 5 dark web horror stories mixed with chilling paranormal encounters that still don't have a clear explanation. This happened to me in late October, during my second year of college. I was living off campus with 2 roommates in a rundown townhouse that always felt colder than it should have. It wasn't haunted or anything, at least not that I knew of. It was just old. The floorboards popped at night, the plumbing knocked inside the walls, and the windows rattled every time the wind picked up. My roommates, Tyler and Sean, were the type of guys who could turn anything into a joke. They were the kind of people who would hear a weird sound upstairs and say something dumb like, "That's just the house digesting." So when Tyler brought up the dark web one Friday night after a few beers, it started as a joke. We were in the living room. Rain was hitting the windows, and Sean was scrolling on his phone while Tyler sat cross-legged on the carpet with his laptop. He looked up and said, "You ever actually go on that thing?" I said, "No. I'm not trying to end up on some watch list." Tyler smirked. "It's probably just boring forums and crypto scams." Sean laughed. "That's exactly what somebody on the dark web would say." Normally I wouldn't have bothered, but it was one of those nights where none of us had anything to do, and the weather outside made staying in feel like an event. Tyler already had Tor downloaded from some class project months before, and within 20 minutes, we were all leaning toward the laptop like idiots. At first, it was exactly what people always say. Strange marketplaces. Message boards. Random pages full of broken images and weird text. Some were clearly fake. Some were just depressing. Drug listings, stolen accounts, scam pages promising things they obviously couldn't deliver. Then Tyler found a directory page full of random live links. Most were dead. One of them had a title that was just 3 words. No audience required. Sean read it out loud and snorted. "That's not creepy at all." I said, "Don't click that." Tyler clicked it immediately. The page took a few seconds to load, and when it did, it looked almost empty. Black background. A tiny video player in the center. No title. No chat. No comments. Just a live timer at the bottom that said the stream had been running for 2 hours 13 minutes and 44 seconds. The video itself showed a dim room. Concrete floor. A single hanging light. And what looked like an old wooden chair in the middle of it. "That's it," Sean said. Tyler refreshed the page. Same stream. We watched for about 30 seconds before Tyler moved the mouse over the screen. No controls. No user info. Nothing. Just a live timer. I said, "Close it." He didn't. The room on the stream was still empty. The camera was fixed high in one corner, like a security camera. The picture quality was awful, all grain and blur, and the light above the chair swung very slightly, even though there was no visible reason for it to be moving. Then Sean frowned and leaned closer. "Wait." Tyler looked at him. "What?" "The wall." At first I didn't see it. Then I did. Behind the chair, on the far wall, there were shapes scratched into the concrete. At first they looked random. But after a few seconds you could tell they were words. Lots of them. Layered over each other. Some small, some huge, like different people had written on the wall over time. Tyler squinted. Can you zoom? There was no zoom. We moved the laptop closer anyway, like that would help. The biggest words, scratched deeper than the others, seemed to say, "Don't let it see you." None of us spoke for a second. Sean let out a laugh, but it sounded forced. "Okay, that's pretty good." Tyler still had that grin on his face, but even he looked less relaxed. Then something moved in the corner of the stream. Not in the room. In the foreground. Something passed very close to the camera lens, dark and quick, like a hand or a sleeve. We all reacted at once. Tyler jerked back. "Okay, what the hell?" The room was empty again. Just the chair. Just the light. Just that wall. I said, "I'm serious." "Close it." He hovered over the browser tab but didn't click. Then the stream changed. Not the room. The angle. Suddenly it was showing a second camera. This one looked down a long hallway with concrete walls and a black door at the far end. There was no transition. It just switched. The timer kept going. Sean said, "Is this live?" Tyler said, "Looks live." I asked, "How can you tell?" He pointed. "Look at the light flicker." The hallway camera was darker than the first one. Only one light bulb at the near end, and the rest of the hall faded into shadows. The black door at the end had something painted on it in white, but the stream quality was too bad to make it out. Then, from somewhere in the house, we heard a sound. A dull knock. Not from the laptop. From upstairs. We all froze. Sean looked toward the ceiling. "Tyler?" Tyler said, "That wasn't me." We listened. Nothing. Then Sean laughed again, too loudly. "Old house." Tyler nodded, but his eyes stayed on the laptop. The stream switched back to the room with the chair. Now there was someone sitting in it. None of us had seen them enter. They were just there. A person slumped forward, arms resting at their sides, face lowered so far we couldn't see it. They wore a dark hoodie. Their hands looked pale under the hanging light. Tyler whispered, "Did it cut?" Sean shook his head. "No." The person didn't move for nearly a full minute. I don't know why we kept watching. I've asked myself that 100 times. Maybe because once fear mixes with curiosity, it gets hard to separate them. You keep expecting a reveal that makes it normal. A prank. A fake stream. An art project. Something. Then the person in the chair slowly lifted their head. The face was blurred by the bad quality, but you could still tell something was wrong. Not gore. Not blood. Just wrong. The proportions seemed off somehow. The head looked too long. The mouth too wide. And where the eyes should have reflected the light, there was just darkness. Sean muttered, "Nope." Tyler moved to close the tab. Before he could, text appeared under the stream for the first time. A single line. "We can see all three of you." Nobody spoke. I felt every hair on my arm stand up at once. Sean said, "That's not funny." Tyler refreshed the page again, like that would somehow fix it. The stream stayed up. Same room. Same figure in the chair. Then another line of text appeared. The one in the middle should check the window. Tyler was sitting in the middle. He turned slowly toward the living room window behind us. The curtains were open. Rain slid down the glass in crooked trails. And outside, just beyond the reflection of our own room, was a shape standing in the yard. Tall. Still. Too far in the dark to make out clearly, but close enough to know it was there. Sean was the first to move. He shot up off the couch and stumbled backward, cursing. Tyler slammed the laptop shut so hard it made a cracking noise. I got to the window and yanked the curtain closed. For about 10 seconds, all we did was breathe. Then Sean said, "Someone's outside." Tyler grabbed a kitchen knife, which was about as useless as it sounds, and I'd picked up the heavy flashlight we kept by the front door. We looked out through the peephole, then through the side window. Nothing. When Tyler finally worked up the nerve to open the front door, the yard was empty. Just rain and darkness. No footprints that we could see. No car parked nearby. Nothing. Sean kept saying it had to be some guy messing with us. Someone who hacked our webcam or tracked our IP or whatever. That should have made sense. Except our laptop camera had been covered with tape since Tyler bought it. And even if someone somehow got our location, how would they know where we were sitting? Tyler opened the laptop again. The browser had crashed. When we reopened Tor, the page was gone. Not offline. Gone. The link didn't work. The directory page didn't exist anymore either. Sean wanted to call the cops. Tyler said, and I agreed, that telling the police we found a creepy stream on the dark web and then saw a person outside would make us sound insane. So instead, we locked every door and window in the house and stayed in the living room all night with every light on. Nothing else happened. At least, not until around 4 a.m. We were all half asleep when we heard it again. A knock. This time not upstairs. At the living room window. 3 slow taps against the glass. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. Then came a 4th tap. I turned my head just enough to see the curtain shifting slightly from the draft near the window. And behind it, visible only for a second in the gap where the fabric didn't fully meet, was a pale shape. A face. Pressed against the glass from outside. Tyler shouted and jumped up, but by the time he reached the window and tore the curtain open, it was gone. We called the cops after that. They searched the property and the alley behind the townhouse. Nothing. No prints. No one seen on nearby cameras. The officer who took our statement clearly thought we were drunk and freaking each other out. By morning, it almost felt stupid. Almost. Then Sean went upstairs to use the bathroom and yelled for us. We ran up there and found him standing in the hall, staring at the wall opposite his bedroom. Scratched into the faded wallpaper, deep enough that bits of plaster had fallen to the floor, were 5 words. The same ones we had seen on the wall in the stream. "Don't let it see you." Tyler moved out 2 weeks later. Sean and I lasted another month before the landlord let us break the lease. I never told my family the real reason. I just said the place had problems. For a long time, I convinced myself someone had broken in. Some sick person. Some stalker from online. That explanation worked right up until last year. I was living alone in a completely different city, in an apartment on the 4th floor. New building. Secure entrance. No roommates. No dark web. None of that. One night, after falling asleep on the couch with the TV on, I woke up around 2 in the morning to a soft tapping sound. 3 taps. Then a pause. Then one more. I sat up and looked toward the living room window. And standing on the other side of the glass, 4 stories above the ground, was a face I recognized from that stream. Black eyes. Too wide a mouth. And before I could even scream, it smiled. A few years ago, when I was still doing freelance repair work on computers and old phones, I got contacted by a guy named Eric. He said he had bought a laptop at an estate sale and wanted me to wipe it clean because it was full of weird garbage. That was how he described it. Weird garbage. I told him to bring it by my apartment. He showed up that same evening carrying one of those old black Lenovo laptops in a grocery bag. He looked uneasy the second he handed it to me. "Listen," he said. "If there's illegal stuff on there, I don't want to know." I laughed a little. "You probably bought some dead guy's old porn machine." He didn't laugh. "Maybe," he said. "Just text me when it's done." After he left, I made coffee and set the laptop on my desk. It booted up fine, which surprised me. Most estate sale electronics are either smashed, locked, or ruined with age. This one was old but functioning. No password on the main account, which was the first strange thing. The desktop had almost nothing on it. No family photos. No documents. No music. Just a folder called ASH, and Tor already installed. That should have been the point where I shut it down and called Eric to come get it himself. Instead, I clicked the folder. Inside were dozens of text files, a few videos, and screenshots of what looked like dark web pages. The text files were like journal entries, all dated over a period of 6 months. The first one started normal enough. The writer, a man named Leonard based on one of the signatures, said he'd discovered a vendor on the dark web who sold authentic supernatural evidence. I remember actually laughing when I read that. That sounds ridiculous now, and it sounded ridiculous then. The vendor's name was Widow Ash. According to Leonard, the seller specialized in items taken from haunted homes, crime scenes, or occult sites. Hair wrapped in black thread, burned dolls, audio cassettes with documented voices, Polaroids from abandoned churches, dirt from graves. It all read like obvious scam material. But Leonard believed it. His writing had this obsessive tone to it, like he wanted desperately for the world to be stranger than it was. He wrote about depression, insomnia, and feeling like nothing in life felt real anymore. He said he wanted proof that there was something behind the curtain. That phrase appeared in multiple entries. I skipped ahead a week. Leonard wrote that he had bought his first item from Widow Ash, an unlabeled VHS tape recovered from the basement of a burned farmhouse in Vermont. He said the listing claimed the tape contained a home recording made 3 nights before the house fire killed a family of 4. Again, obvious nonsense. But then I noticed that one of the video files in the folder was named farmhouse_clip.mp4. I opened it. It had been converted from VHS at some point, and the quality was horrible. Static lines, audio hiss, washed out colors. It showed the inside of a house at night, lit only by a table lamp. Someone was filming a living room. A woman's voice off camera said, "Why are you recording?" A man answered, "Because it's in the hallway again." That made me sit up a little. The camera moved shakily toward a hallway leading deeper into the house. At the far end, for only a second, there was a figure standing half in shadow. Tall. Thin. Face hidden. The woman behind the camera holder started crying softly, and saying they should leave. The man whispered, "It doesn't like when we leave." Then the clip ended. It could have been fake. Honestly, it probably should have felt fake. But something about it bothered me. Not the figure. The audio. The fear in their voices sounded real. I went back to the journal entries. Leonard said that after watching the tape, he started seeing movement in his own apartment hallway at night. He thought it was stress at first. Then he heard footsteps outside his bedroom when no one else was there. A few entries later, he mentioned buying a second item from Widow Ash. A bundle of photographs from an abandoned hospital chapel. Then a child's shoe from a drowning site. Then a cracked hand mirror wrapped in cloth. The more he bought, the worse the entries got. He described hearing knocks inside the walls. Waking up with dirt on his floor. Finding doors open that he knew he had locked. He became convinced the items weren't just haunted individually. He believed Widow Ash was sending pieces of the same thing. Something. Distributed. His word, not mine. At that point, I was more interested than cautious. The whole thing felt like stumbling into an ARG or the notes of a delusional guy who had gone too deep into spooky internet nonsense. Then I found screenshots of conversations between Leonard and the seller. The messages were short and strange. Leonard, the mirror is covered when not in use like you said. Why is it still showing movement? Widow Ash, you uncovered it before dawn. Leonard, how do I stop hearing her? Widow Ash, that isn't her. Leonard, you said each item was separate. Widow Ash, that was before you made them aware of each other. I stared at that line for a while. Made them aware of each other. I told myself someone was just very committed to the bit. Still, I kept reading. The final entries were hard to get through because Leonard's writing was getting erratic. Sentences cut off halfway. Entire pages of repeated words. He claimed the corners of his apartment were getting darker every night no matter how many lights he used. He said he had started smelling wet ash in every room. The last clear entry said, I covered the mirror. I boxed the tapes. I burned the shoe. It did not help. She said if I hear breathing under the bed not to look. Widow Ash has stopped replying. I think what she sends is not haunted. I think it is hungry. There were no more journal entries after that. Just one final video file. No label. I clicked it. It was a webcam recording from the laptop itself. Leonard sat facing the screen in a dark room. He looked exhausted. Beard grown out, eyes sunken, skin gray. He kept glancing over his shoulder at the bedroom behind him. He said very quietly, if somebody finds this, don't buy from her. Don't open anything she sends. Don't answer if she emails you back. It uses... A loud thump came from somewhere off screen. He froze. Then came another sound. A soft dragging noise across the floor behind him. Leonard's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, no. The dragging got closer. I expected a jump scare. Some edited reveal. A friend in makeup. Instead, the camera glitched. For one frame, maybe two, something was visible in the doorway behind him. It was too tall for the frame, bent at the top like it had to fold itself to fit. Its skin looked almost powdery under the darkness, and it had what looked like long black hair hanging in wet strands over where a face should have been. Leonard turned around. The video cut out. I sat there for maybe a minute without moving. Then I laughed at myself. Not because it was funny. Just because when your brain doesn't know what to do with fear, sometimes it reaches for anything. I decided I'd wipe the laptop right then and not think about it again. Before I could, an email notification popped up in the corner of the screen. Apparently the old account on the laptop was still logged in. The sender name made my stomach drop. Widow Ash. The subject line said, you opened everything. I should have shut the laptop. Instead, I clicked the email. There was no greeting. No signature. Just one line. Please do not uncover the mirror after sunset. That was it. No attachment. No context. I remember sitting there, trying to figure out if someone was somehow messing with me in real time. Then I heard something from my bathroom. A tiny sound. Like glass shifting against tile. I lived alone. My apartment was small enough that I could see the bathroom door from my desk. It was open about halfway. The light was off. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I got up. I wish I could say I was brave. I wasn't. I grabbed a screwdriver from my workbench and walked slowly to the door. Nothing. Sink, shower curtain, toilet, laundry hamper. Then I noticed the medicine cabinet mirror. The mirror door was slightly open. I never left it open. I stood there looking at that gap for a while. Then I told myself I probably had. That I was creeping myself out over a stupid laptop and a creepy email from some old account automation or some prank. I pushed the mirror shut and went back to the desk. Another email had arrived. "Did you check under the bed?" My throat felt tight. I backed away from the desk and pulled my phone out to call Eric. No answer. Straight to voicemail. So I unplugged the laptop and closed it. The second I did, the apartment went silent in a way I can't fully explain. Not quiet. Dead. Even the hum from the refrigerator seemed gone. I became aware of my own breathing. Of the sound of my socks moving against the floor. Then came a knock from inside my bedroom. 3 knocks. On the wall. Slow and deliberate. I did not go in there. I grabbed the laptop, my keys, and got the hell out of the apartment. I spent the night in my car in a grocery store parking lot with every light on inside. The next morning, I called Eric again until he picked up. When I told him I was returning the laptop and wanted nothing to do with it, he got quiet. Then he said, "Did you find the emails?" That made my blood run cold. I asked him what he meant. Eric admitted that he had turned the laptop on before bringing it to me. He'd gone into the Tor browser and found messages with Widow Ash too. He thought it was some sick roleplay thing and wanted no part of it. But before he shut it down, he saw an unread draft in the email account that scared him enough to bag the laptop and call me. I told him to read it to me. He said it was from Leonard Unsent. It said, "If you are seeing this, then I failed. I sold the laptop after she stopped answering. I know that was wrong. I know passing it on only gives it another door. But I haven't slept in 11 days and it keeps standing at the foot of the bed. If you bought this computer, do not log into Tor. Do not read the files. And whatever you do, if you smell ash, do not look behind you." I said, "Why didn't you tell me that first?" He didn't answer. I drove the laptop back to his place and left it on the porch. He didn't even come outside. That should have been the end of it. But 2 nights later, while I was trying to sleep, I woke up to a smell in my apartment. Wet ash. Not smoke. Ash. Like a fireplace after rain. I lay there perfectly still with the blanket pulled up to my chin. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. From under the bed. Slow. Patient. Almost like someone trying very hard not to laugh. I moved out within the week. A month later, I looked up Eric's name online. He had died in a highway accident 3 days after I returned the laptop. Single vehicle crash. No other cars involved. According to the report, his body was found in the driver's seat. But what stayed with me was one line from a local article. A witness who arrived first said the driver's side window had the word ASH traced into the condensation from the inside. I never saw the laptop again. I did, however, get one more email. New address. Empty body. Just a subject line. Thank you for closing the mirror. Back when I worked nights doing data entry for a private records company, I had way too much free time. The job was mindless. I sat alone in a windowless office from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., digitizing old case files and uploading scanned documents into a secure archive. It paid badly, but I needed rent money and the schedule matched the classes I was taking. The office building was in an industrial area on the edge of town. At night it felt abandoned. Half the lights in the parking lot were burned out, and the only sounds were the air system, the vending machine compressor, and sometimes trucks passing far away on the freeway. The records company handled storage for law firms, insurance agencies, and occasionally local government contracts. Most files were boring. Medical claims, property disputes, old court records. Stuff nobody cared about anymore. One week, though, I was assigned a batch of physical media recovered from a closed evidence warehouse. Boxes of mini-tapes, CDs, old hard drives, and labeled cassettes that needed to be cataloged. The supervisor told me most of it had already been cleared for digitization. My job was just to sort, transfer, and tag. It was around 1:30 in the morning when I found the tape. Mini DV cassette. White sticker. Handwritten label. River Street, Interview B. No date. No case number. I searched the archive system for River Street and got several unrelated entries. Fires, theft, and assault from the 90s. Nothing that matched. So I loaded the tape into one of the old cameras we kept for transfer work and ran it through the capture program. The footage opened on a dim interview room. Metal table. 2 chairs. Cheap camcorder angle. Timestamp in the corner, though the date had glitched and only showed zeros. A man sat at the table. He looked to be in his 30s. Thin, tired, wearing a stained sweatshirt. There was no detective visible, but a voice off camera asked, "Can you state your name?" The man answered, "Evan Rook." The interviewer asked, "Do you understand why you're here?" Evan nodded slowly. "Because they think I put her in the wall." That line got my attention. The rest of the interview was strange from the start. Evan spoke in a flat voice, like he was exhausted beyond fear. He said he rented a room in a building on River Street. He said there was a woman in the room next to his, but that no one ever saw her in daylight. He could hear her through the wall every night. Crying first, then whispering, then scratching. The interviewer asked for her name. Evan said, "She didn't tell me, but she said she was under it." The off-camera voice paused before asking, "Under what?" Evan looked toward the corner of the room instead of answering. The interviewer repeated the question. Evan finally said, "The building." I remember rolling my eyes a little at first. It sounded like somebody with severe mental problems being questioned about a missing person. But then the audio started doing something odd. Every time the interviewer spoke, the room sounded normal. Slight echo. Air vent hum. Shuffling. But every time Evan answered, there was a second sound underneath his voice. Very faint. Like another person whispering at the exact same time. I backed the tape up and replayed one section twice. It was definitely there. I assumed it was bleed-through from an old recording. That happens sometimes. I kept watching. Evan said he eventually started responding to the sounds in the wall. At first by knocking. Then talking. Then staying awake all night waiting for her to speak. She knew things, he said. Like what? The interviewer asked. What my mother wore in the coffin. That made me stop typing. He kept going. Said the voice told him where pipes ran behind the walls, where old rooms had been sealed off during renovation, where a child had drowned in the basement boiler flood in 1968. The interviewer sounded skeptical but interested. Then he asked Evan the obvious question. Did you damage the wall in your apartment? Evan smiled for the first time. A tiny, empty smile. She asked me to. The camera suddenly glitched. Static burst across the image for maybe 2 seconds. When the picture stabilized, Evan was leaning much closer to the camera. I actually flinched. Not because he moved. Because I hadn't seen him move. He was just suddenly closer. His eyes looked glassy and unfocused. He said, She didn't like interview A. The interviewer went silent for a second and then asked, What do you mean? Evan turned his head slightly, as if listening to someone standing behind him. Then he whispered, She said you didn't keep that one. The tape ended there. No outro. No file marker. Just dead blue screen. I sat in my chair for a while, staring at nothing. Then I searched the physical box the tape came in. No interview. No case file. No notes. Nothing but a few unrelated discs and evidence envelopes. That should have been enough to tell my supervisor something was missing from the package and move on. Instead, I got curious. I searched our digital archive more thoroughly. A few broad hits came up for River Street, but one in particular stood out. A code entry from an old municipal housing file with a scanned complaint log from an apartment building condemned in the early 2000s. I opened it. The building address matched the one Evan mentioned on the tape. The complaint log was full of the usual stuff. Water damage, mold, heating issues, noise complaints. Then, near the final pages, I found repeated handwritten maintenance requests from multiple tenants describing the same thing. Scratching in walls? Female crying from sealed room. Voice heard under floor after 2 a.m. The dates spanned over 17 years. I felt that weird tightness in my chest people get when something stops feeling like a coincidence. At around 3:15, the office phone rang. That never happened at night. I answered, expecting security or some wrong number. All I heard was static. Then, very softly, a woman whispering. I couldn't make out every word, but I clearly heard. Play the first one. Then the line went dead. I checked the caller ID. Internal extension. No number. I got up and walked out into the hall. The building was empty. The reception desk was dark. Break room empty. Copy room empty. Bathroom empty. I told myself it was somebody from the cleaning crew messing around, except there was no cleaning crew scheduled until mornings. When I got back to my desk, the media transfer software had opened a second window by itself. A file was loading from the connected storage array. One that I had not selected. The file name was River Street, Interviewer. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before clicking play. This tape looked older, more degraded. Same room. Same camera. But this time, the chair was empty for the first 30 seconds while the interviewer spoke to someone off camera, sounding frustrated. Then 2 officers led in a woman. I say woman, but it was hard to tell her age. Her hair hung over her face in stringy clumps. Her clothes were filthy. Her wrists looked bruised. She was barefoot. They sat her down. The interviewer asked her name. She didn't answer. He asked if she knew Evan Rook. Still no answer. He asked where she had been found. At that, she slowly raised her head. I felt cold all over. Not because she looked monstrous. Because I knew her face. Or thought I did. She looked exactly like the figure from the stream in Story 1's chair. Same long face. Same stretched mouth. Same darkness where the eyes should catch the light. Not identical in a clean way, but close enough that my stomach turned. The interviewer asked again, louder this time. Where were you found? The woman smiled. Then, in a perfectly calm voice, she said, Under it. The tape audio cracked so hard I had to lower the volume. What happened next still doesn't feel real when I think about it. The woman turned her head toward the camera, even though the interviewer was speaking from the side. Then she said very clearly, You're not the first one to watch these at night. I paused the tape. My hands were shaking. I looked behind me, around me, under the desk like an idiot. Of course no one was there. I kept telling myself this was impossible. Old tape. Pre-recorded line. Coincidence. my mind attaching meaning where there wasn't any. Then the office lights flickered. Not all of them. Just mine. The row above my desk went dark, then on again. Then dark. Then on. I got up and went to the main light switches in the hall. Nothing wrong. When I came back, my chair had rolled back from the desk as if someone had stood up from it. I know how that sounds. I know. I did not sit down again. I stood behind the desk and watched the monitor. The paused frame from interview A remained on screen. The woman's face. Her smile. Then, without me touching anything, the video resumed. The interviewer asked, "What does that mean?" The woman answered, "There are rooms under the rooms." The interviewer said, "Were you living in the crawl space?" She started laughing. Not loud. Not crazy. Just soft, like she genuinely found the question childish. Then she said, "No. I was there before the building." The image broke into static. The audio kept going. Somebody in the room, maybe the interviewer, started shouting. Chairs scraped. A man yelled, "Get her off!" Then there was a sound like wet coughing right next to the camera microphone. And over all of it, that whispering layer came back, louder this time. Not one voice. Many. Saying the same thing. "Open the archive. Open the archive. Open the archive." The tape cut out. On the office computer, windows started opening by themselves. Folder after folder. Scanned photos. Old maps. Building permits. Missing persons reports. Files with names that had nothing to do with River Street. And in all of them, somewhere, there was the same phrase. Sometimes handwritten. Sometimes typed. Sometimes scribbled in margins. Under it. My phone buzzed in my pocket so suddenly I nearly dropped it. No caller ID. I answered without thinking. A woman's voice whispered, "You digitized me." Then the line clicked off. I left the office right there. Didn't shut anything down. Didn't lock up. Just grabbed my backpack and ran to my car. As I crossed the parking lot, I heard something behind me in the darkness between the loading dock lights. Bare feet slapping wet pavement. Fast. I didn't turn around. I dove into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine so hard I flooded it for a second. By the time I got the car moving and looked up, there was a figure standing under the far lot light. Barefoot. Hair hanging down. One hand lifted, not waving exactly, more like reaching. The next day my supervisor called asking why I had abandoned my shift. I told him the tapes were messed up and something was wrong with the archive. He got annoyed and said he'd check the system logs. According to the logs, I never opened any file called Interview A. It didn't exist on the server. I told him it had opened itself. He laughed like I was joking. So I went in later that afternoon and looked for it myself. Nothing. No tape. No digital file. No River Street case folder at all. But there was one thing. On my desk, under the keyboard, was a maintenance complaint scan I knew I hadn't printed. Only one line was highlighted. Tenant reports female voice coming from sub-basement access. Building has no sub-basement. I quit a week later. Months after that, I saw an article about a new condo development being built on the old River Street site. During excavation, workers reportedly found a section of foundation far older than the building that had been demolished. Beneath it was a sealed chamber. No public details were released about what was inside. But one of the laborers posted anonymously on a local forum that the chamber walls were covered in names scratched into the concrete. And at the center of the room, there was an old metal chair facing a camera mount bolted into the corner. My younger sister, Layla, disappeared for 9 days when she was 17. She came back alive. That's the short version everybody knows. The longer version is the reason I can't hear notification sounds in the middle of the night without my stomach turning. Layla had always been the reckless one. Sneaking out, talking to strangers online, lying about where she was going, trusting people she shouldn't. My parents were always fighting with her, always grounding her, always checking her phone. And every time, she found a way around it. When she went missing, everyone assumed she had run off with some older guy. She had a history of talking to people she met online, and her laptop search history was full of private browsing, encrypted chat apps, and weird links. The police treated it like a runaway case at first. My mother screamed at them in the station lobby. My dad barely spoke for a week. I was 21 and home from school, and I spent every day doing what the police should have been doing, going through Layla's accounts, checking messages, looking at deleted files, trying to piece together who she had been talking to. That was when I found the browser bundle on an external drive hidden in her room. Tor. Old screenshots. Saved pages. Chat logs. At first it looked like she had just been snooping around the dark web out of curiosity. She had bookmarks to forums about conspiracies, horror stories, occult junk, shock sites, all the stuff a bored teenager would think was edgy. Then I found a folder called 13 Doors. Inside were screenshots of a thread from some dark web forum. The layout was almost unreadable. Black background, gray text, usernames in red. The thread title was, "Post a name if you want the door to open." It had hundreds of replies. Most were fake-looking usernames posting celebrity names, exes, random nonsense. But farther down the thread, there was a post from a user I recognized instantly. Layla's old gaming alias. And under it, just one word. Layla. I remember staring at that for way too long, feeling this rising dread that made no sense yet. There were more screenshots after that. Direct messages between Layla and another account called Bell_0W. Bell_0W told her the thread wasn't a game. Said some names, echoed back, and some didn't. Claimed there was a hidden site accessible only through a chain of links given to selected users. Layla, being Layla, played along. The messages went on for days. Bell_0W told her she had a receptive name. Even writing that now sounds stupid, but it clearly got under her skin. She asked what that meant, and Bell_0W kept answering in these vague, creepy little riddles. Some names open inward. Some names are easier to hear from the other side. Have you started waking up at 3:13? That detail made me stop because I remembered Layla complaining a few weeks earlier that she kept waking up at the same time every night. At the time, we had joked about it. Now it didn't feel funny. The messages got worse. Bell_0W asked if she had begun hearing someone call her from another room when nobody was home. Yes. Asked if mirrors looked wrong after midnight. Yes. Asked if she had ever seen a door in a dream that did not belong in our house. Yes. Then Bell_0W wrote, "Do not open it until invited." After that, Layla's replies changed. She stopped sounding playful and started sounding scared. She said she was hearing knocks from inside her closet. Said she woke up with muddy footprints near her bed. Said our dog would stare at the hallway outside her room and growl at nothing. I hadn't known any of that. Neither had my parents. A few messages later, Layla wrote, "I think something is saying my name in the vents." Bell_0W replied, "Then it heard you first." That was the point where I called the detective and told him I had found something important. He took a copy of the files, nodded like he cared, and probably dumped them into the same pile as all the other nonsense. That night, I kept going through the folder by myself. There was one final screenshot of the thread. Somebody had replied directly under Layla's original post. No username. Just blank. The reply said, "Door acknowledged." I didn't sleep at all that night. At around 4 a.m., while I was sitting in Layla's room with her laptop open, I heard a soft knocking sound from inside her closet. 3 knocks. Then a pause. Then 1. I froze. It happened again. I told myself it was pipes or wood settling or anything but what it sounded like. Then I heard it. My sister's voice. Very faint. From inside the closet. "Can you open it?" I backed away so fast I knocked her desk chair over. I called my dad in, half embarrassed, half panicking. By the time he came upstairs, the sound had stopped. He opened the closet himself. Clothes. Shoe boxes. Nothing. He looked at me like I was falling apart. Maybe I was. On the 9th day, Layla came home. She was found walking barefoot along a frontage road 5 miles from our house just before sunrise. No phone. No bag. No clear memory, according to what she told police. She was dehydrated, scratched up, and had a bad cut on one foot, but otherwise physically okay. My mother acted like a miracle had happened. My dad cried in private where he thought nobody could hear him. The police questioned her for hours, but she kept saying she couldn't remember where she had been. Only pieces? A house, maybe? A room with no windows. A woman humming. A red light under a door. She wouldn't say more. For the first week after she came back, she barely spoke at all. She slept with all the lights on and refused to be in any room by herself. If someone said her name suddenly, she'd flinch. Then one night, around midnight, she came into my room and shut the door behind her. She looked exhausted. She said, "I need to tell somebody before it gets stronger." I asked what she meant. She sat on the edge of my bed and told me the part she hadn't told the police. She said Bell_0W eventually gave her a set of links that led to a hidden site. Every page was just a different image of a door. Old doors. Steel doors. Church doors. Burned doors. Some half open. Some locked. No text. Until the final page. The final page had a live chat box. Someone in the chat called her by her real name. Not her username. Layla. They told her to prove she wanted the door open by going outside at 3:13 in the morning and standing in front of the detached garage behind our house. I asked her if she actually did it. She started crying. That was my answer. She said when she went outside, the garage side door was already open. My dad always locked it. She thought maybe someone was inside playing a prank on her, maybe someone who knew her. She walked toward it. She said she heard humming from inside. A woman humming the same lullaby our mother used to sing when we were little. Layla stepped into the garage. And on the back wall, where there should have been shelves and tools, there was a door she had never seen before. Painted black. Old brass knob. Thin line of red light underneath. I asked if she opened it. She nodded. I wanted to tell her she was lying, but the fear on her face stopped me. She said the room beyond the door was not our garage. It was a narrow hallway, damp and cold, with peeling wallpaper and a smell like mold and something rotten underneath it. She heard her own name farther down the hall in our mother's voice. So she kept walking. And that was the last thing she remembered clearly before waking up 9 days later on that road. I asked her if she thought she'd been abducted by a real person. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "I think somebody invited something in, and it pretended to be a place. Those were her exact words. I didn't know what to say. Then she grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt and whispered, "Don't say my name in the house after midnight." For a while, things settled down. Layla started eating normally again. She went back to school. Therapy helped a little. My parents insisted the rest would fade with time. But weird things kept happening around the house. Small at first. One of us hearing Layla answer from another room when she hadn't spoken. The dog scratching at the garage door and whining. Closet doors open in the morning. My mom thinking she heard humming through the baby monitor we still use for sound in my elderly grandmother's room during visits. Then came the thread. About 3 weeks after Layla returned, I made the mistake of trying to access the site myself. The original links were dead, but one of the screenshots had enough identifiable text that I found the forum again. The thread was still there. Same title. Thousands more replies now. And near the bottom, a new post. No username. Just blank, the same as before. The post read, "Return names are never empty." Below that was a list. Maybe 20 names total. One of them was Layla's. I closed the browser so fast my hand hurt. The next night, I stayed awake outside her room with a baseball bat because I didn't know what else to do. Around 3:13, I heard a soft voice inside her room. Not Layla's. Older. Female. Saying, very gently, "You can come back through whenever you're ready." Layla started sobbing from inside. I burst into the room. She was sitting upright in bed, staring at her closet. The closet door was open, and there was red light leaking from the crack between the hanging clothes at the back, where there should only have been drywall. My sister pointed at it and screamed, "Close it!" I yanked the closet door shut so hard it cracked the frame. My parents came running in. When my dad opened the closet again minutes later, there was nothing unusual inside. No red light. No extra space. Nothing. We moved out 6 months later. Layla refused to take anything from that house except clothes and one framed photo of our grandmother. She said the rest could stay. My parents thought leaving would help. It did for a while. No more knocking. No more humming. No red light. Layla eventually moved to another state. Got married. Had a daughter. For a few years, it almost felt like she'd outrun whatever happened. Then last winter she called me at 3:26 in the morning. I answered half asleep. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. The only clear thing she said was, "She knows the lullaby." I asked who? She said her daughter, 3 years old. And from the other end of the phone, very faintly, I could hear a little girl humming the same song our mother used to sing. A song nobody had ever taught her. Then Layla whispered, "There's a door in her room that wasn't there yesterday." I used to moderate a small horror channel online. Nothing big, just a side thing where viewers sent in creepy stories, local legends, weird footage, and true paranormal experiences. Most of it was fake. Some of it was entertaining. A tiny amount was disturbing in ways that didn't feel staged. One night, after posting a call for dark web and paranormal submissions, I got an email from an address with no readable name. Just a long string of numbers and letters. The subject line was, "Use this before it is mirrored." Attached were 3 files. A text document. An audio recording. A video labeled last_upload.mp4. I opened the text file first. It was written like a confession from a guy named Nolan who claimed he ran hidden relay servers for private sites on the dark web. He said one of the servers had started receiving traffic to a site he had never hosted and could not remove. According to him, the site appeared under random dead onion addresses after midnight and stayed live for exactly 44 minutes. Every time he blocked it, it reappeared through another relay. No owner. No source trail. No consistent code signature. The site had no title. Just a black page with a single embedded video player and a live viewer count that always read 1, no matter how many devices accessed it. Nolan wrote that he made the mistake of watching one full stream. After that, his apartment changed. Doors appearing open. Files moving on their own. Audio recordings on his drives containing whispers he never recorded. He wrote that the stream wasn't transmitting in the normal sense. "It's searching," he said. That was the line that stuck with me. I almost deleted the email right there, assuming it was someone trying too hard to create a creepy story. Then I opened the audio file. At first it sounded like room tone. Static. Electrical hiss. Faint hum. Then a male voice whispered. I only watched 20 minutes. It was followed by a woman's voice saying, "That's enough to be noticed." Then silence. Then the male voice again, much farther away, saying, "It's in the hall." I shut the file and rubbed my eyes. Everything about it felt designed to spook people. Still, I opened the video. The video began with a screen recording of a desktop. Nolan was narrating over it in a shaky voice, explaining that he had isolated a mirror of the stream and was documenting what happened in case he disappeared. He opened a browser and showed a black page with the same video player he had described. The viewer count said 1. The stream showed a room. Concrete floor. Wooden chair. Single hanging light. I actually cursed out loud when I saw it. Same room as story 1. Or one just like it. Nolan's breathing got louder on the recording. He muttered, "There it is." Same setup. The stream timer on his screen read 18 minutes and 9 seconds. For a while nothing happened. Then the room camera switched to a hallway camera. Then to what looked like a child's bedroom. Then to a stairwell. Different places, same awful security camera quality. Each one empty. Nolan whispered, "It cycles through locations. It's not random." He clicked a folder on his desktop full of screenshots. Each image showed one of the stream locations. He had labeled them with notes. Hallway appeared after hearing knocking in apartment. Child room resembles bedroom from tenant photos and archived case file. Stairwell appears in dreams before upload goes live. Then he opened one screenshot that made my stomach turn. It was the River Street chamber from story 3. Concrete chair room, same angle, same wall markings. Nolan zoomed in on the writing behind the chair. There were hundreds of scratches, but one message had been circled. "Every viewer builds a room," he whispered. "That's what it does." The stream on his screen switched back to the chair room. Now someone was in the chair. Bent forward. "Still," Nolan said. "I never stay after this part." Then, like an idiot, he kept watching. The figure slowly raised its head. Its face was blurred, but I recognized that same impossible darkness in the eyes. Then the figure spoke. Not through subtitles. Out loud. From Nolan's screen speakers. It said, "You should not have copied us." Nolan gasped and knocked something off his desk. The viewer count changed from 1 to 2. Then the video on my computer paused. Not Nolan's original recording. My video player. The progress bar froze. I clicked the mouse. Nothing. Then, from my own apartment hallway, I heard footsteps. Slow. Approaching. I live alone. Or at least I did then. I muted my speakers and listened. One step. Then another. Then silence. I should have shut the laptop. I should have deleted everything. Instead, I leaned toward the screen and waited. The video resumed on its own. Nolan had gotten up from his desk and was filming with a handheld camera now, breathing hard. He walked toward his apartment hallway. The lens shook badly. At the far end, his bedroom door stood open, though he kept repeating that he had closed it. He whispered. This started after the mirror went live. Then he swung the camera toward a wall beside the bedroom door. There was writing on it. Fresh scratches, white dust falling beneath them. Last upload before entry. Nolan started swearing and backing away. Then, from inside the bedroom, a woman's voice softly said, You already uploaded enough. The camera turned. At first there was only darkness inside the room. Then a face appeared in it. Not emerging. Already there, waiting just beyond the doorway. Long face. Wet dark hair. A mouth stretched into a smile that looked less human the longer you stared at it. Nolan screamed and dropped the camera. The image went sideways, showing carpet and the lower half of the doorway. Bare feet stepped into view. Too pale. Too thin. Then several more pairs of feet crowded behind the first pair, as if many people were standing in that dark room waiting for permission to come out. The video cut to black. I sat frozen at my desk. Then the text document reopened by itself on my screen. A line had been added at the bottom. I know this because I had already scrolled to the end before. The new line said, If you receive this, do not play the video to completion. That is how it maps your rooms. I looked at the player. There were still 8 minutes left. Something cold moved through me. The footsteps in my hallway started again. Closer this time. I got up and slowly opened my bedroom door. The hallway was empty. Kitchen dark. Bathroom dark. Living room dark except for the laptop glow behind me. Then I heard a sound from inside my closet. A low, wet breathing. I backed away immediately. My phone lit up with an email notification from the same sender. No subject. No text. Just an image attachment. I opened it. It was a grainy still frame of my own apartment hallway. Taken from high in the corner near the ceiling. A camera angle that did not exist in my home. At the end of the hallway, outside my bedroom door, stood a figure facing the camera. And at the bottom of the image, in tiny white text, was a timer. 36 minutes and 12 seconds. I ran. I grabbed my keys and left the laptop open on the desk. I spent that night sitting in a 24-hour diner shaking so badly the waitress asked if I needed an ambulance. By morning, I had almost convinced myself it was a hack. Someone had doxed me, accessed my webcam, maybe even planted something outside my apartment. I went home with sunlight pouring through the windows and felt stupid for ever being scared. Until I got inside. Every interior door in the apartment was open. Closet. Bathroom. Bedroom. Kitchen cabinets too. And on my living room wall, above the laptop, there was a rectangle of clean paint in the dust exactly the size of a missing picture frame. Except I didn't own a picture frame that size. The laptop was still on. The video had reached the end. The final frame showed Nolan's empty apartment hallway. At the far end, written on his wall in long black streaks, were the words, "Now yours is mirrored." Under that was a download counter. Not viewer count. Download count. It read 5. I called the police, though I knew how it would sound. They took a report for unlawful entry and property damage. They found no signs of forced access. The responding officer asked if I had enemies online. I said no. That wasn't true anymore. For the next month, weird things happened every few nights. A new door sound in the apartment where there should be no door. Whispers and audio exports. Emails arriving empty except for timestamps that matched the times I woke up suddenly for no reason. Then 2 other creators I knew messaged me asking if I had heard of a strange file circulating in horror communities. A video that seemed to reappear no matter how many times people deleted it. One of them sent me a screenshot. The thumbnails showed the chair room. The title was just last_upload_final_real.mp4. I asked where he got it. He said, "From you, I think. Didn't you upload this?" I hadn't. At least not knowingly. Then I remembered the line on Nolan's wall. "Now yours is mirrored." I deleted everything I could find. Channel backups, email caches, cloud folders, old hard drives. I moved apartments. Changed accounts. Changed laptops. It didn't matter. 2 months ago, one of my subscribers sent me a message saying, "Dude, pause your latest video at 1809. I hadn't posted a latest video in almost a year. But my old channel, dormant for months, had a new upload. No title. No description. Comments disabled." I opened it for exactly 1 second before slamming the browser shut. Long enough to see a dim hallway that looked exactly like the one in my current apartment. Long enough to hear, underneath the hiss, a little girl humming a lullaby I recognized from my sister's house. And long enough to notice the viewer count. It didn't say 1. It said 6. I never looked again. The channel is still up, though I don't go near it. Every few weeks, the subscriber count climbs a little. And sometimes, right after midnight, I hear a notification from an old phone I smashed and threw away months ago. A single soft chime from somewhere inside the walls. Like something has uploaded again. So, these were the stories for today. Thanks for sharing your stories with us. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. If you want to share your story with us, send us at belladarktales@gmail.com.